And go to the story that we have been tracking for quite some time now. This is to do with this entire turmoil and the state of affairs that unfolded when authorities were put on alert in Delhi this morning. And all this after inputs were received about the possibility of a bomb on board an Iranian passenger flight, which was in the Indian airspace. Now, the Mahan Air flight IRM-081 on its way from Tehran in Iran to Guangzhou in China reportedly sought permission to land in the national capital. The flight was later diverted to Jaipur due to technical reasons. The pilot, however, refused to land in Jaipur and left the Indian airspace. A call regarding the bomb threat on the flight was received at about 9:20 a.m. this morning. The authorities at the Delhi airport were immediately put on alert, and according to sources, the passengers' jet is now moving towards China, and security agencies are also monitoring the plane very, very closely. We are told that about 2:30 p.m. Indian time is when that landing in Guangzhou will happen.
New information now is that Jaipur was not the only option that was given to this particular flight to land. Chandigarh was another option that was given, but they refused to land there. They only wanted to land in the national capital. However, the pilot declared his unwillingness to divert. So perhaps they were on the flight path to Delhi or onwards, which is why he refused to go to either Jaipur and Chandigarh. But IAF confirming that there was an intimation that was received from Tehran to disregard this particular bomb scare. All actions taken by the IAF as per the laid down procedure is what the Air Force goes on to confirm, jointly with the Ministry of Civil Aviation and the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security as well. So not just the IAF, but the centre also was very, very closely monitoring the Civil Aviation Ministry, keeping a close watch on what exactly was transpiring for those 2 hours perhaps when this particular passenger flight was in the Indian airspace. The aircraft was under close radar surveillance by the Air Force throughout the Indian airspace. That's the confirmation that has come to the fore from the IAF, and we do know that as we speak, the flight is well out of the Indian airspace, perhaps to land at its destination in China in about an hour or so.
My colleague Abhishek Jha now joins me on the broadcast. Abhishek, two things are very, very clear, especially after that entire press note that was released by the Indian Air Force. It clearly says that how Tehran really asked the Indian authorities to disregard all this threat and let the flight move its course. That's number one. However, the other thing that we cannot yet ascertain is that insistence by the pilot on board to land in the national capital. Do we have clarity on that?
Of course, we know that we have had nightmares of experience in terms of aviation incidences that we know. So there is a well laid out procedure and standard operating procedures which are followed now. As per that only, when the pilot of the flying plane, he said that there is a bomb scare in that plane. First, ATC tried to avoid emergency landing in Delhi. And second, IAF fighter planes scrambled from the Jodhpur airbase. These two parallel actions were taken by the DGC, the airport authority, the technical part, which was controlling the traffic, and also the Indian Air Force, which tried to escort or keep a safe distance with the flying Iranian plane in order to save any threat perception that could have come from that plane. However, after a few negotiations, it was made clear that the pilot did not want to land either in the two options that was given to the pilot to Chandigarh or Jaipur, and rather in the meantime, it also information came from the Iranian authorities that to disregard that bomb threat on the plane. And afterwards, that plane moved towards the eastern part of India from various states crossing to Myanmar's airspace. And now we are assuming that this plane is very much in the Chinese airspace. And so far, there has not been any unprecedented or unfortunate incidents with that plane. So it looks quite a bit intriguing what actually happened inside the plane that forced those pilots to connect with the Air Traffic Control of Delhi and ask them for an emergency landing in Delhi.
Right, Abhishek, thank you so much for joining us. Let me take this across to my colleague Tejinder as well. Tejinder, I was talking about that statement that was released by the Indian Air Force. On the one hand, while they also mentioned that Iran had asked them to disregard this entire threat call, however, it was made it amply clear that the Indian Air Force fighter jets are still being asked to scramble and keep an eye on this particular aircraft till it lands in China. So we are still waiting for that to happen at about 2:30.
See, this is a standard operating procedure that whenever there is an air threat, the Indian Air Force has to scramble its jet. This is a standard procedure which has to be followed. And when this information came to the Indian side that there is a bomb scare on this Iranian civilian aircraft from Iran, which was on its way to China, so the Indian Army, as per the SOP which is to be adopted, scramble its Sukhoi jets, and we have those visuals wherein we can see the Sukhoi jet being scrambled. The Air Force later issued a statement, but right now the aircraft has already entered into the Chinese airspace. So the entire picture would become clear only after the Iranian authorities or the Chinese authority, they would issue an official statement about this. Though the sources are telling us that this could very much be a hoax by somebody, but still no chance, nothing was left on chance. So that is why the Indian Air Force fighter jets, they were scrambled. But the entire picture would become clear only after the Chinese authorities or the authorities in Iran would come out with an official statement why such a call was made. But you can also see that the Indian Air Force clearly mentions that after a while intimation was received from Tehran to disregard the bomb scare, following which the aircraft continued on its journey towards its final destination. So it is to be seen when the Indian authorities, they got the information about the bomb scare on this flight, why the Iranian authorities, they said that Indian authorities should disregard this bomb scare. So clearly there is more to it than that meets the eye. So clearly things would become clear only after the Iranian authorities would issue a statement, or after this plane lands in China, wherein I'm sure that as per the protocol, Chinese authorities and Chinese law enforcement agencies by now would be present at the airport to make sure and to scan the entire aircraft.
Absolutely,
To see
Tejinder.
if there is
In
any
fact,
bomb